What if everything you've been told about life after death is wrong, and the real truth has been hidden in the ancient wisdom of Africa's forgotten gods? In Africa, death is not an end, it's a return. A passage through gods, ancestors, and cosmic judges who decide your next destiny. But what if these gods aren't myths, but the true keepers of the afterlife? In the beginning, death was never the end. Across Africa, gods ruled both the living and the dead. The journey of the soul wasn't to heaven or hell, but back home. The ancestors guide, protect, and even return as new life. But today, this truth is forgotten, until now. In Africa, death is not the end, it is a doorway. A passage through time and spirit, where the living and the dead meet in endless conversation. From the sands of Egypt to the rainforests of the Congo, every African civilization believed the soul continues beyond the grave, not as a ghost, but as energy reborn, returning to the ancestral fold. Across the African continent, the veil separating the living and the dead was never seen as permanent. To the Yoruba, the world was divided into I, the realm of the living, and Orun, the realm of spirits and gods. Among the ancient Egyptians, it was Duat, the underworld, where souls journeyed to face Osiris, the god of rebirth and judge of the dead. To the Igbo, it was Olamuo, the spirit land, ruled by ancestors and powerful deities who maintained the moral balance between man and nature. These weren't stories meant to frighten, they were sacred maps of existence, blueprints that explained how energy moves between dimensions. Death, in African cosmology, was simply a continuation of consciousness. The soul was eternal, guided by gods and ancestors who watched, corrected, and occasionally returned through the birth of a new child. In the heart of these beliefs lies a powerful secret. Africans saw no separation between gods, spirits, and humans. Each person carried divine essence, a spark of the same force that animated the gods themselves. When a person died, that spark did not vanish, it rejoined the cosmic web, entering the ancestral plane to await renewal. But somewhere along history's path, during the rise of empires, colonization, and conversion, this truth was buried. The African understanding of the afterlife was silenced, hidden beneath foreign doctrines of heaven and hell. Yet the spirits never stopped calling. Their messages still echo in rituals, in masquerades, and in dreams, waiting for those bold enough to listen. The camera pans toward a twilight horizon. A silhouette of an ancestral figure appears within the mist. What if the African gods are not gone, but waiting at the edge of the veil, watching, ready to welcome us back to the forgotten realms of eternity? In the beginning, the gods stood between worlds, guardians of passage, keepers of truth. In African cosmology, death is not chaos. It is divine order, guided by deities whose wisdom shapes the journey of every soul. Across Africa, powerful gods and spirits serve as intermediaries between life and eternity. In ancient Egypt, Osiris, Lord of the afterlife, ruled over the judgment of souls in the Hall of Ma'at. Here, each heart was weighed against a feather, symbolizing truth, harmony, and justice. If the heart was pure, the soul was welcomed into the eternal fields of Aru. But if heavy with deceit, it was devoured by the monstrous Ammit, the eater of the dead. But Africa's vision of divine judgment was never meant to instill fear, it was meant to restore balance. In Yoruba belief, that balance was maintained by Orunmila, the god of wisdom and destiny. When a person died, Orunmila guided the soul back to Orun Rear, the realm of good spirits, or to Orun Apadi, the wasteland of broken souls. Unlike the Western idea of eternal punishment, these destinies were transformative. A soul could return through reincarnation to correct past wrongs or fulfill unfinished purpose. Life was cyclical, not linear, a continuous conversation between the mortal and divine. Meanwhile, among the Igbo, Allah, the earth goddess, stood as both womb and tomb, the ultimate judge of human morality. To die unjustly or with sin against the land was to be denied peaceful return to the ancestral realm, condemned instead to wander the wilderness as a restless spirit. For the Igbo, moral purity ensured one's acceptance into Olamuo, the radiant ancestral world where the living could still call upon you through libations and rituals. Across the continent, from Kemet to Ife, from Enugu to Timbuktu, every god of death was a god of justice. To them, death was not punishment, it was purification. But this divine judgment carried a paradox, it was deeply personal. The same gods who guided your ancestors would also test you, not to destroy, but to remind you that life and death are reflections of one eternal truth. Your actions shape your afterlife. And so, before the soul could journey beyond, it had to face the gods, not to beg for mercy, but to prove that it remembered the sacred law of balance. For only those who lived in harmony could cross the threshold into eternity. As the thunder rumbles softly, the rain drips onto sacred earth and the souls of the dead hover across ancient tombs, masks, and flickering candles. In Africa's sacred cosmology, the soul's journey after death is not random, it is a carefully guided path, a spiritual odyssey mapped by the gods, guarded by ancestors, and fueled by memory. When the body returns to dust, the African soul begins its mystical voyage through layered realms, crossing rivers, mountains, and thresholds unseen by human eyes. Among the ancient Egyptians, this journey was described in the Book of the Dead. The soul traveled through Duat, a labyrinthine underworld filled with divine guardians, celestial lakes, and gates of fire. Here, Anubis, the jackal-headed guide, led the spirit toward Osiris, ensuring safe passage through the trials of the night. Each trial was symbolic, representing the purification of the heart and the remembrance of one's divine origin. In Yoruba tradition, the soul's passage mirrors this divine pilgrimage. Upon death, the spirit returns to Orun, a vast spiritual cosmos divided into layers. Orun Rear, the realm of the ancestors, radiates peace and harmony, while Orun Apadi reflects turmoil and disconnection. The soul's placement is determined by the life it lived, its alignment with destiny, Ayanmo, and the wisdom it gathered through experience. Yet even in Orun Apadi, the Yoruba soul is not eternally condemned, it is refined, prepared for rebirth, and eventually returned to earth through reincarnation. For the Igbo, the journey continues into Olamuo, the realm of spirits beneath the earth. There, the deceased joins the ancestors who watch over the living, guiding them through dreams, omens, and the whispering wind. The path into Olamuo, however, is not automatic. One must have lived in truth, honored kinship, and maintained moral purity before crossing into this realm. To die with unresolved transgressions is to become a Muo-oju, a wandering, restless ghost who lingers between worlds, yearning for redemption through the prayers of the living. Among the Dogon of Mali, the journey takes yet another cosmic shape. They believe the soul ascends through Sirius, the sacred star, back to the creator Alma. The Dogon map of the universe places the afterlife among the stars, revealing a connection between the cosmos and human destiny that predates modern astronomy by thousands of years. To die, therefore, is not to vanish. It is to journey, through rivers of memory, mountains of truth, and celestial gates, until the soul stands once more before the divine. Across Africa, the journey of the soul is never feared. It is revered, a return home to the source, the ancestors, and the gods who have been waiting since the dawn of creation. In the African worldview, there is no true death, only return. The soul moves in cycles, flowing between worlds like the tide, guided by the divine law of balance. This is the secret rhythm of existence, the eternal dance of gods, ancestors, and the unborn. Across the continent, reincarnation is not seen as a mystery, it is a natural law of spiritual justice. Among the Yoruba, it is called a tunwa, the soul's return to the human world. When a child is born, elders often look closely for signs, a birthmark, a familiar gaze, a behavior that mirrors a departed ancestor. They say, "He has come again." The Yoruba believe souls return through family lineages to complete unfinished destinies or to enjoy the rewards of good deeds in previous lives. Each birth is therefore sacred, representing not a beginning, but a continuation of divine purpose. In Igbo spirituality, this concept is known as Ilo Yuwa, the returning to the world. Ancestral spirits, Ndayaki, often choose to reincarnate within their lineage, maintaining the bond between the living and the dead. Life, death, and rebirth form a sacred trinity, all under the watchful eyes of Chukwu, the supreme source. To the Igbo, when someone dies, their spirit is not lost, it journeys through Alamuo, consults with the ancestors, and returns to complete divine obligations left undone. It is believed that the soul's return is approved by the earth goddess Allah, who ensures moral debts are repaid before rebirth. Among the Akan of Ghana, the idea of Kra, the soul, is central to this cosmic balance. The Kra originates from Nyam, the creator, and carries a person's destiny. When one dies, the Kra returns to Nyam to be cleansed and renewed before being sent back to earth. Thus, reincarnation is not punishment or escape, it is restoration. Each life refines the soul's wisdom, bringing it closer to perfection and divine unity. Even the Dogon and Bantu cosmologies align with this principle, that life is a cycle of energy. Energy cannot die, it transforms. The dead become ancestors, ancestors become guides, and guides return as children. Every act, every choice, every emotion sends ripples through this cosmic circuit, shaping not only one's next life but also the spiritual health of the entire lineage. This cycle of return is Africa's greatest expression of divine justice. No sin goes unpaid, no virtue unrewarded, no soul forgotten. Every birth is a second chance, every death, a sacred return. And so the gods maintain the balance, weaving humanity, divinity, and ancestry into one eternal rhythm. For in Africa, to live well is to die well, and to die well is to be reborn in the light of your ancestors. For centuries, Africa's truth about the afterlife, about gods, balance, and reincarnation, was buried beneath conquest and conversion. Colonial powers replaced the wisdom of ancestors with foreign fears, heaven or hell, salvation or damnation. Yet the spirits never left. They waited. And now, they are awakening. Today, a quiet revolution is spreading across Africa and the diaspora, a spiritual renaissance. Young Africans are rediscovering their ancestral faiths, reviving ceremonies, invoking orishas, and honoring their ancestors as divine intermediaries. From Lagos to Accra, from Harlem to Havana, the names once whispered in secret, Osun, Ogun, Allah, Maat, Anubis, are being spoken again with pride and reverence. These gods, long dismissed as pagan, are now recognized as cosmic forces that explain the universe far more deeply than imported dogmas ever did. African spirituality was never about blind worship. It was about connection, with nature, with ancestors, with the cosmos. It taught that life and death are reflections of each other, that the divine lives within you, and that moral balance, not fear, determines your destiny. This worldview doesn't divide God from humanity. It reminds us that the gods are within us, as we are within them. But this awakening comes with a challenge. Many still see Africa's gods as relics of the past, primitive myths overshadowed by foreign religions. Yet every ritual, every chant, every dance calls us back to the truth: the ancestors never died. They walk among us. Their voices echo in our dreams. Their energy flows in our blood. In this modern age of science and technology, people are beginning to understand that what Africa knew thousands of years ago, the immortality of energy, the cycle of rebirth, the unity of all life, aligns with the deepest truths of the universe. The African afterlife was never fantasy. It was physics expressed through spirit, philosophy wrapped in myth, and science disguised as ritual. So when you die, do not fear. For in the eyes of the African gods, death is but a bridge, a crossing back into light, into memory, into eternity. This is the forgotten truth of Africa: we are infinite. The gods are not gone, they are us, living, dying, and rising again in the eternal rhythm of the universe. The afterlife is not beyond the sky, it is right here, within the soul of Africa itself. The gods of Africa never died, they live through our stories, our dreams, and our souls. Every heartbeat echoes the rhythm of the ancestors calling us home. Death is not the end, it is a return to divine memory, to the cosmic truth of who we are. Let these mysteries remind you that Africa's spirit is eternal, unbroken, and awakening once again. Fire if this truth moved you. Like, share, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more journeys into Africa's hidden worlds.